The oceans are so vast that seafarers in the past used to think that throwing rubbish overboard caused no harm. They were wrong. Garbage from ships contaminates the seas, kills wildlife and plants, and litters the beaches. Many substances take years to biodegrade. Painted wood, 13 years. A tin can, 50 years. An aluminium can, 80 to 200 years. Plastic, an estimated 450 years. Some types of plastic may never break down completely. Almost 5 million tons of plastic enter our oceans every year. Many marine organisms absorb the microscopic particles of plastic, and these may contaminate the food chain. But marine debris isn't just about the environment. It's expensive too, harming tourism, agriculture and aquaculture, damaging harbours, marinas and power stations. In the Asia-Pacific region alone, the cost is estimated at more than $1 billion each year. All good reasons for the laws on marine waste to be tightened. MARPOL Annex V entered into force in 1988, regulating the prevention of pollution by garbage from ships and banning the disposal of plastic at sea. In 1998, the regulations were amended, with a greater emphasis on the sustainable management of waste and on record keeping. In 2011, Annex V was revised again, this time in a more radical way. Before, most forms of garbage, except for plastic, could be thrown into the sea, as long as the ship was far enough from land. But since the 1st of January 2013, it's been the other way round. With a few exceptions, and under certain conditions, no form of garbage can be discharged anywhere at sea. Further changes in 2016 involved new criteria for determining whether the residues of solid bulk cargoes were harmful to the marine environment, with the shipper being responsible for declaring whether or not they are. The exceptions, under certain restrictions, are food waste, animal carcasses, non-harmful cargo residues, and non-harmful cleaning agents. All other categories of garbage have to be kept on board. That includes plastics, cargo residues that could be harmful to the environment, cooking oil, fishing gear, domestic waste, and operational waste. Operational waste means all solid wastes, including slurries, that are collected on board during normal maintenance or operations, or used for cargo stowage and handling. It also includes cleaning agents and additives contained in cargo hold and external wash water. Bilge water, grey water and similar discharges are not counted as operational waste. The revised regulations require ship owners and operators to plan their garbage management strategy much more thoroughly.
Procure them.
MARPOL Annex V applies to ships of 100 gross tons upwards, ships certified to carry 15 or more persons, and fixed and floating platforms. All must have a garbage management plan based on the guidelines developed by the IMO. The plan should set out the ship's equipment and arrangements for garbage handling. It should list the written procedures and crew responsibilities for the collection, processing, storage and discharge of garbage. The best management practices for shipboard garbage management, from international standard ISO 21070, could be incorporated into the plan, but only where they're consistent with Annex V. It's the MARPOL requirements which are legally enforceable. On-board responsibility for the garbage management plan lies with a designated person, such as the Environmental Control Officer. The relevant officers will need training in how to complete their ship-specific plans. The key to success is minimisation. Reducing potential garbage coming on board will cut down on storage space and cut costs when it comes to discharge in the port or terminal. Buying in supplies that come in reusable or recyclable packaging. Avoiding disposable cups, dishes, towels, rags and supplies packaged in plastic. Using permanent reusable coverings for cargo protection and stowage systems and methods that reuse dunnage, shoring and lining materials. All these measures will cut down the volume of garbage on board. But they'll need careful planning to take account of the ship's size, storage space, processing equipment and the capacity of the port reception facilities. The process starts with how the garbage is collected. The person with responsibility for the garbage management plan should assign duties for the collecting and emptying of the bins and make sure they're carried out. Garbage should first be separated out according to the categories set out in the garbage record book. Following the revisions to MARPOL adopted in October 2016, these are Part 1, A. Plastics, B. Food wastes, C. Domestic wastes, D. Cooking oil, E. Incinerator ashes, F. Operational wastes, G. Animal carcasses, H. Fishing gear, I. E-waste. Part 2. Cargo residues, non-HME. Cargo residues, HME. The receptacles should be clearly marked and placed in appropriate spaces throughout the ship. Food waste and any other garbage that could present a hazard to the ship or crew, such as oily rags, light bulbs, acids and medical waste, should be kept apart from the other types. Containers holding food wastes and other garbage that may carry disease or pests should be kept tightly closed. And all storage bins should be securely fixed so they can't move around. Some countries have strict quarantine laws to control human, plant and animal diseases carried by food and its packaging. The responsible officer should find out whether food waste will need to be incinerated, sterilised or double-bagged. Although not mentioned in Annex V, the collection of medical waste needs special care. Unprotected, contaminated sharps mixed with other garbage could injure the people handling them. Because all medical wastes are potentially infectious, they should be stored and disposed of in line with company procedures. Processing the garbage that's being collected will reduce its volume and make it easier to discharge in port. Processing is done by compaction, grinding or incineration. A compactor compresses the garbage into a dense block of material. A grinder reduces food and other waste into small particles. This speeds up the natural biological processes which break down the food. Most garbage can be incinerated, but the resulting ash and clinkers must be kept on board. With all these methods, it's essential to follow the equipment manufacturer's instructions. Once the garbage has been collected and processed, it may need to be kept in special storage areas until it can be discharged ashore. Access to these areas should be kept clear. The different types of garbage should be separated out into clearly marked containers to avoid mistakes in port. These too need to be firmly secured. All garbage should be stored so that it avoids health and safety hazards, and the storage areas should be regularly cleaned and disinfected. Since the 1st of January 2013, any garbage that can't be discharged into the sea should be taken to a port reception facility. The ship should ask the agent at least 24 hours in advance about the reception facilities in the port. The master of the ship can also check directly with the port authority or harbour master about the availability of reception facilities. Or this information can be found in GISIS, the IMO's Global Integrated Shipping Information System. Some port reception facilities may need to be informed beforehand about the waste that's to be delivered. Forms for advance notification and for reporting problems at reception facilities are available from the IMO website. In Europe, a standard notification form has to be used. Ships are only allowed to discharge the permitted categories of garbage into the sea when the ship is underway and as far away as possible from the nearest land. But even then, there are many restrictions. They depend on the distance from shore and whether or not the ship is in a special area or operating in polar waters. The latter now include Arctic waters as well as the previously defined Antarctic Special Area under MARPOL Annex V. The special areas are the Mediterranean Sea Area, the Baltic Sea Area, the Black Sea Area, the Red Sea Area, the Gulfs Area, the North Sea Area, the Antarctic Area, and the wider Caribbean region. Within special areas and polar waters, if the ship is 12 nautical miles or more from land or the nearest ice shelf, it may discharge ground food waste, non-harmful cargo residues contained in wash water, and non-harmful cleaning agents and additives in cargo hold wash water. Non-harmful cleaning agents and additives in deck and external surfaces wash water may be discharged anywhere in a special area. But the discharge of cargo residues not contained in wash water is prohibited, even if they are non-harmful to the marine environment. The discharge of all other garbage is prohibited in a special area. Offshore platforms that are more than 12 nautical miles from land, and all ships that are either alongside or within 500 metres of these platforms, are also subject to Annex V restrictions. They may discharge ground food waste, but no other category of garbage. Outside a special area, ground food waste can only be discharged when the ship is more than 3 nautical miles from the nearest land. For non-ground food waste, the distance must be more than 12 nautical miles. 12 nautical miles is also the minimum distance for cargo residues, on condition that they can't harm the marine environment. Non-harmful cleaning agents and additives in cargo hold, deck and external surfaces wash water may be discharged anywhere, whether in or out of a special area. Cleaning agents or additives contained in the wash water from cargo hold, deck and external surfaces that are harmful to the marine environment may not be discharged either inside or outside a special area. Carcasses of animals carried as cargo, which died during the voyage, may only be discharged outside a special area, but not in polar waters. It's recommended that this takes place at more than 100 nautical miles from land and in the maximum water depth possible. The revised Annex V also prohibits the discharge into the sea of any solid bulk cargo residue that contains substances the shipper has declared as harmful to the marine environment. Ships will need to check beforehand with the port reception facilities whether they can handle these residues. If any fishing gear that could pose a significant threat to the environment or navigation is lost or accidentally discharged, this must be reported to the flag state. If this occurs in the waters of a coastal state, it must also be reported to the state authorities. Every ship of 12 meters or more in length and fixed or floating platforms must display placards which notify the crew and passengers of garbage discharge requirements. The placard should be placed in prominent places in the crew and passenger accommodation and recreational areas. All ships and platforms covered by Annex V must keep a garbage record book. The book has now been revised so that it has parts 1 and 2 to reflect the new garbage categories, and officers who write in it will need to be trained in the new record-keeping procedures. Entries must be made whenever garbage is discharged to a reception facility ashore or to other ships, when garbage is incinerated, when garbage is discharged into the sea, and whenever there's been an accidental loss or exceptional discharge at sea. In this case, the reason and general remarks must also be given. Each entry has to include the date and time of the discharge or incineration, the position of the ship, the category of the garbage, and its estimated volume in cubic meters. Each column must be completed. For discharge of cargo residues, the discharge start and stop positions must also be recorded. Each entry must be signed by the officer in charge of the operation, and each completed page must be signed by the master. The Polar Code imposes additional restrictions on garbage disposal for ships operating in polar waters, and these are described in more detail in the workbook which accompanies this program. Note that for cargo residues that cannot be recovered during commonly available methods for unloading, if the loading and destination ports are both within Arctic waters and the ship doesn't leave such waters during transit, then cargo hold washing water may be discharged, provided it does not contain any substance harmful to the marine environment and that the prescribed distance from ice is met. The administration may decide not to require a garbage record book for any ship that's engaged on voyages of 1 hour or less and certified to carry 15 or more persons, or for fixed or floating platforms. For all other ships, the garbage record book must be completed correctly, kept on board for at least 2 years after the last entry, along with receipts obtained from reception facilities, and open for inspection at all times. Annex V is not simply a set of guidelines. Discharging garbage which is prohibited under Annex V and falsifying entries in the garbage record book are both illegal. They can result in prosecutions and substantial fines, which won't necessarily be covered by the company's insurance. If the violation occurs in US waters, crew members may be held as witnesses for many months while investigations take place. The revised MARPOL Annex V significantly changes the approach to shipboard garbage management. For the first time, most garbage has to be delivered to port reception facilities. The emphasis is on garbage minimization, on processing to reduce the volume, and on the reuse or recycling of materials. Garbage must be separated out when it's collected and securely stored. Placards about the banning of garbage disposal into the sea must be clearly displayed. The Polar Code imposes additional restrictions on garbage disposal for ships operating in polar waters. The garbage record book has changed. Thorough training of officers and crew in the correct management of garbage and in the operation of processing equipment is essential. Complying with MARPOL Annex V is in all our interests, for the sake of our oceans and the life within them. Our beaches, our future. Better garbage management is everyone's responsibility for a cleaner and safer world.